Okay, today is a special day, years in the making. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting for this, and for the last maybe 5 years I've had a plan, but I have not had the ingredients to make that plan happen. Here is our special guest of the day. In case you don't know, this is the wild morel mushroom, highly desired and hard to find in the woods. For the last 5 years after coming up with this idea, I have not been able to find even one, much less enough to do this project. Now, I'm sure you're asking, what project? Well, take a look at what we have here and see if you can guess what I had in mind. So, we have this here mushroom, very much like other mushrooms in flavor, but covered in these pits, nooks, and crannies. And what exactly are we going to do with these crannies? Well, let's look at some of the other characteristics. One of the identifying features of a morel is the fact that it is hollow from bottom to top. Is that giving you any ideas yet? Well, rather than ruin the surprise, I think we're going to just learn together what we can do with this here mushroom. Now, that being said, some of these mushrooms, I've got about 2 pounds of this mushroom. And some of these mushrooms are too small, maybe a little bit too dry, or just don't have a big enough opening for what I have planned for them. And those ones are going to go in the trash. Not really, I'm joking. Those ones and the pieces that I cut off the bottoms are going to go in a special recipe for the world's worst kept secret, the Hungarian mushroom soup from the former Sibley station in Pequot Lakes. Look it up, you'll find information on it everywhere. Now, that being said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cull what we have. I'm going to start by tidying up the stems. I'm going to cut them off so we have more of an access and we can see inside, see how clean they are. The stems are going to go into a bowl, as will the ones that are too small to use. And the ones that we will be using are going to go into a different bowl and getting ready. I'm not going to have you stick around for that part, so let's skip ahead to the next. Okay, we're going to have 2 things go with our mushrooms today. Again, I'm going to keep it a secret what we're making in the end after we get done processing this particular ingredient. Some of you will probably know where we're going, but to keep up with a wild theme, we're going with some very, very lean meat. Venison, to be specific. You can do it with lamb, sometimes probably even a very, very lean beef. I've started with a little bit of olive oil in the bottom. This is medium-high because we want this to brown. We don't necessarily want it to make a lot of rendered fats. Not that there are that many in here. So just kind of spread it out and make a layer of this venison across the bottom of your hot pan. And by the way, this recipe is courtesy of another cook. I'm going to put the link down in the description. Check that out if you want to see the original. But we're going to let this brown on the bottom before we flip it and then add some other ingredients. Okay. This should probably be pretty good on the bottom. Let's see. Oh yeah, we're building a little bit of a crust, and that's what we want. So we're going to turn it. We're going to add some onion. Now you could go even more wild and go with ramps, but I think with as strong a flavor as venison can have, you run the risk of overwhelming the ramps. They have a stronger smell than they have a flavor, and that's okay. I'm going to scrape a little bit of that fond off. I'm not adding any liquid, but scrape a little bit of that off and mix it up real nicely. We're going to go until those onions are soft. Alright, so the onions are soft enough now that we're probably done with this portion. Before we do our next step, however, we have to let it cool. If we don't let it cool, we're going to end up with a big mess on our hands, and it'll take about 10-15 minutes to cool. In the meantime, we've got another item to make, so just stay tuned. So the second part of our experiment doesn't require any cooking. It's going to be cold. So we're going to start with about, that's 8 ounces of ricotta, 1/4 cup of ramps, minced, about a 1/2 cup squeezed out frozen spinach. And by the way, you can incorporate things that are wild in place of some of these items. That spinach, if I had planned ahead, could have been either nettles, or even more effective would have probably been lamb's quarter. So I'm going to actually mix that together a little bit just to get it started. Ooh, you can smell those ramps. I think the smell is going to be a lot stronger than the flavor, as I said before, though. So. Alright. Now, as a binder, we're going to go with 1 beaten egg. I guess it'll also thin it out just a little bit, which, honestly, we're going to need that. It's possible that some of you may have already figured out what we're making today. It's possible that some of you may have already figured out what we're making today. And if so, good for you. Try to keep it a secret for everybody else. This is going to be a blast. Okay, it's a pretty nice, smooth consistency, pretty well distributed, and I think that's probably about all that we need for that portion. Alright, this is where a lot of you are going to finally realize what we're making today. Some of you saw this and probably put 2 and 2 together and said, aha! For those of you who don't know, you're still going to have to guess. So, we've got our meat here. It's cooled enough that it won't cause any damage to our electric mixer here. I should say food processor. I'm going to put this in here. So that's all of our meat so far. I'm going to add to it some grated Parmesan, 4 ounces ricotta, a little over a tablespoon of, I have red wine vinegar because I don't have a clue where people find cherry wine vinegar, and a mix of some seasonings. I've got some rubbed sage, pepper, and salt primarily. Alright, that's going to go in there. We're going to blend this to kind of a paste consistency. Oh, missed some of that. We're going to blend this to a paste consistency, something which we can put through a piping bag or some, well, what we have equivalent. Let's go for it. Don't be afraid to open it up and push the stuff off the sides. Look at that, we're getting a nice pasty consistency. We're almost done. Okay, so if you have a pastry bag, that'll probably be your best bet, but for today this is all I could find. So, I've already filled it a little bit. Are you figuring out what we're doing yet? So I'm going to fill this about as well as I can. Then I'm going to screw on the end. So it's likely that as this filling warms or cools down a little bit, it's going to gel a little bit. That being said, maybe try to act fast, and we're going to fill these up as well as we can. And it is working, see? Looks kind of gross when you do it that way, so don't do it that way more than you have to. Don't want to lose your appetite. I reiterate that you probably would be better off with a pastry bag, but we work with what we have. Some of these are going to be slightly different sizes, and that's okay. You can split them if you're not careful, so be careful. Alright, that's going really well. The reason I keep on saying a pastry bag might be better is a pastry bag has less to break, to be perfectly honest. The bag itself might break, but chances are this plastic shaft here is probably going to break before that pastry bag. And I can feel that weakness in it already, which is why I'm giving extra support on the back end, towards the front and all over the place. You get the idea. We're filling these up with ravioli filling. In case you hadn't guessed, that's what we're doing. We fill it up with ravioli filling. I'm filling a lot of mushrooms. I suspect I probably overshot with deciding to make 2 fillings instead of just 1. Okay. Alright, I did about half of the mushrooms, at least visibly, about half of them with the meat filling, and next I washed this, We're going to stuff this with our ramp ricotta filling, and we're going to do it all over. This one might be a little bit thinner than our first one. Yeah, it feels pretty good. So let's see. I'm a little bit worried about the stringiness of the spinach. We might be able to fix that if it gets to be a problem, though. Fill it just like you did with the last one, kind of tamping it in there between scoops. And by the way, you can probably cut the meat recipe in half. We made about probably a little bit less than a pound, maybe 3/4 of a pound of the mushrooms into meat-filled mushrooms, and we're going to do the same with these. So about half the recipes, and go from there. I even saved a couple of these big ones. Let's see. Yep, wait, that's pretty smooth. So it's a little bit less gross than the meat filling. Ooh, watch out, that one explodes. So the stringiness of the spinach does indeed make for some surprises. It doesn't go all at once, but it requires less overall pressure than the meat-filled ones. And just kind of... So when you get close to the top, definitely use some caution. Oh, see, that was what I was worried about. We do have a clog. Just keep that nearby. There it is. Okay. That's a problem. All right. Alright. I don't expect us to be totally done with that mess, but if we're lucky. Let's try that again. Alright, much easier. See that? It's not going to be quite the texture we want. Look how much easier that is. Ooh. Look at that monster. How the heck? All right, so what we're looking at is we've got our trusty cast iron back. I've got a pan here with some store-bought tomato sauce because it's 9 o'clock and we've already done enough, I think. I'm out of paper towels, so we've covered this with coffee filters, our vegetable, our ricotta, spinach, and ramp filled morels are here. Our venison-filled morels are over here, and we're going to start by just kind of pan-frying, sautéing with just a little bit more olive oil over here. If the cheeses melt out too much, we will try a different method. But, fingers crossed, hopefully, this will work. We're going to try one of each to start. I'm going to remove these to drain just a little bit, and then we're going to give this a try. Let's throw in a few more of these in the meantime. And when our oil runs a little bit low, we're going to replenish that with butter, because that's what everybody swears by, butter and ramp. I give enough space that we can roll these very easily when they are cooked on one side. Sorry about the screen, I just don't want grease on my lens. Got a little bit of a cooked sample. Now tell me those nooks and crannies don't look like they need a sauce, though. No, that's almost nothing for presentation. But. This is pretty good. This is actually pretty good. I think maybe I would work on the flavors just a little bit more for the fillings, or maybe find a more appropriate sauce to accompany. Roll these just a little bit. And so there you have it, a very simple, very delicious alternative to your average pasta ravioli. As you can see right here, we've got our vegetable, and over here we've got our meat, and with a nice healthy dose of grated Parmesan on top. Now, if there's something I would do different, it would definitely be the sauce. I don't know why I didn't think about this. It makes perfect sense. I should have gone with a rosemary brown butter sauce. Or maybe something along the lines of a pine brown butter sauce if we wanted to go with something a little bit more wild. That being said, even the red sauce is really good. It's just a little bit strong compared to the mild flavors that are in the ramps, and even overwhelms the venison flavor just a little bit. But the venison has a nice sausagey flavor with the spices that we added. And the sauce really does sit in those nooks and crannies better than probably any pasta that you've ever dealt with. That being said, this is a winner. People can probably upgrade it. I'm happy to be the one who came up with this idea. I'm happy to be the one to share it with you. I hope that I see other people coming up with ways to upgrade it in the future. That being said, this has been Grim Cooks. Hope to see you out there on an adventure, be it a food adventure or any other kind of adventure. Keep on having fun.